This is a special meeting, so we'll take up the agenda items as presented. First up is personnel update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to give the school committee a up-to-date personnel report to show them where we are in the hiring process to start the school year. We actually reviewed this at 4 o'clock today to try to give you the most up-to-date information. So anything that's in yellow is still an outstanding position to be hired. And in the past week, I think I've signed close to about 30 hiring. So we're starting to move along, and I would anticipate in the next 2 weeks we'll have a majority of these filled. The superintendent and I, over the next couple days, we're going to meet with some of the principals just to talk about some of their plans, because there are some outstanding positions that need to get filled. But otherwise, we feel like we're in pretty good shape right now. We have a lot of folks in the pipeline that it may be yellow, but we have applications and everything in HR that we're just waiting for them to get either transcripts, waiting for them to come in and do queries, fingerprints, all those types of things before we can actually officially hire them to Marlborough Public Schools. Yellow is an open position.
Are they attractive to any of you? You have to get fingerprinted.
We're not allowed.
Any questions from the committee? Questions from the committee?
There is one update, if I could provide it, that just occurred today. There's a recommendation moving forward for the Director of Guidance. The final interview took place today, and we are all set with that person. So that should be updated. It was late-breaking news.
Late-breaking news.
Late-breaking news. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Any questions? Thank you very much. Human Resource Director position.
Thank you. So the second item on this agenda, and really this has the most urgency, and I thank you in advance for your consideration and for having this meeting, is, as you know, the Human Resources Manager that we currently have in our employee is retiring August 3rd. And we are proposing, and this is unanimous, we've discussed it often with our team here at Central Office, that we expand the role of the Human Resource Manager to include a Human Resource Director position, which is a little bit more of a leadership position, sitting at the leadership table with us in central office. And there's many reasons for that. The time has really changed. There are a lot of initiatives, a lot of things that we could very well expand this position to. I've talked with a lot of HR directors. I've also talked with superintendents and others, and this is a resounding recommendation for us. And because it is a change, we did want to bring this to you for approval so that we can post it, hopefully tomorrow morning if we can, because that time is very quickly coming to an end. So in your packet was a draft. I'm certainly open to any comments or additions, deletions that you would have to this. Secondly, in your packet is a copy of the district improvement plan that you voted on, that we all worked on in committee several years ago. I'm aware that this is, comes to an end in 2017, and I have every intent to reconvene the committees and review this and expand on it and add it. But this is our current guiding district document, and one of the standards is actually called Human Resource Management and Professional Development. And there are several action steps that were recommended and voted on by the group that worked on this particular standard that really align well and help in our advocacy for this position to an expanded role. And we can talk more about that if you like, but I only put it in the packet for you to familiarize yourself with.
Questions from the committee? Ms. Hennessy.
The only thing I really wanted to support on a conversation that we had about this human resources position is that I actually sat on the district improvement plan group, and actually was on the group that worked on the human resources section. And so for me, when we were having some discussions about, I had asked some questions about human resources, That was one thing that really kind of called out to me that I didn't feel that we were necessarily doing yet. Although it had been something that from a directive we wanted to achieve. We kind of started to put our toe in the water, such as like we had adult learning and professional development around adult learning. And we kind of put our toe in the water a little bit about trying to support like the ESL community on some adult learning. But yet we really haven't done a lot of forward movement there. And we had talked a lot about talent searches on really expanding, not just necessarily utilizing what we have right here in front of us with School Spring. And so that was something that I wanted to at least make sure that was, kind of pronounced to you all, since I had actually sat on that group. And I have to say, I learned a lot from Sue Gordon, who was a member of our community and has had 2 children go through the district, and she has an HR background, and she really offered up a lot of insight. And I have to say that I really think an expanded position would be really called for our high expectations that we do have, and we want to continue to keep on pushing. So that's it.
I had talked to the superintendent prior to the meeting tonight, just some questions I had about the job. And one of the things we discussed is the job description and qualifications were for higher level admin position, which is, I think, what we're looking for, but not necessarily specific to an HR position. And I think through the process, I think hopefully you can kind of weed out and kind of direct the position. But if we're hiring an HR director, I just would like to see more experience and more HR experience. And even, I was unaware exactly what the DESE administrative certificate was. So she clarified to me it's more an administrative school certificate or certification process. So again, in following up on our conversation about the legal fees, if we have a good HR director that has good HR experience, it may be able to help us out with some of that too. So I'm not looking to hold this up, but if I was going out looking for an HR director, I'd be bulking this up with a lot more HR experience. So, my 2 cents.
To the mayor's point, as with a business administrator, I mean, you retain a certification, right, Mike, for under administrator?
Yes, I carry a certification for business manager, and I carry a certification for assistant superintendent, just in case.
So have you seen in other districts where there are more HR driven as like a business manager, but somebody who has a lot of HR experience? Because having been in that world before, you don't see a lot of them going into the school arena and wanting to participate in an administrative certification. So I'm just curious as to.
I can respond to that. I've done a lot of talking with current seated HR directors as well as superintendents or former superintendents, and there seems to be a trend now where it comes, in some districts it comes under the aegis of an assistant superintendent. So it becomes sort of a function or an arm of that job, but that's more of an HR manager. It's more of a, what we have currently. Those who are HR directors, there is a trend lately to have people not so much certified as, to have the SEVA certification and the CORI and so on, but an assistant, a superintendent, or principal, assistant principal. So someone who has some knowledge of the school, but learned and got schooled up on some of the HR. But the perfect person we're looking for has a blend of both. I think if we can cover ourselves, beef it up a little bit, and then take each person on a case-by-case as they come in, and we have everyone interview them.
And I think if I was looking for an HR director, that person would be a resource for the principals and others in the district to call with questions or concerns about an employee issue, directly call the HR director and get the feedback rather than just using their experience. They're using their professional experience also. But, again, I just, not looking to hold it up, but I want to give a little leeway here to get the position. The only other thing that I would throw up is, I would ask that if the committee would go along with it, to allow the superintendent to insert preferred in different places. If we get someone, because I think only one of the qualifications said preferred, but if she could implement, that as part of the line. And the only other thing I had was, I believe the person should report to the superintendent. If we're actually hiring a director, they should be in there. If we're hiring a director that's going to be part of the A-team, then they should be part of the A-team.
Right.
I'm happy to go through some of the changes you and I talked about, and I appreciate you coming in to spend the few minutes with me. Number 4, Heidi, the S on needs to be removed. I know you saw that. Number 14, perhaps remove that altogether, as it's somewhat redundant over some of the other ones. Number 15, responsible for the management of, instead of insurance programs, benefit packages covers it a little bit better.
Right, you don't want to be specific.
Right, right. And so the preferred, the changes that the mayor and I talked about, master's degree number 1 under qualifications preferred, active DESE certification, either preferred or strong asset, as we put in number 7, the bilingual, and then beefing up number 3 to a minimum of 5 years' experience. Did I capture it all? Yes.
Get a good person, that's all I care about.
Believe me. And we've just currently implemented, with the current HR manager's help and a lot of help from Mr. Bergeron as well, a new recruit and hire module that is going to expand the capabilities of principals and other hiring managers to manage a search without having to come over to HR and actually spend time with the laptop up in the room, whether it's open or not. And I think there's been a great, a great response to this on the part of the HR manager who sat with us in the trainings, as well as some of the principals who've been trained. So another reason to expand this role, because there is another piece of software to manage. One other thing I did want to say is outgoing superintendent language. This was his area of expertise, so I can understand where he could make do with a manager. This is not my area of expertise, nor can we presume that the person who will replace me in less than a year's time will be schooled up in this as an area of expertise. So to me, those are other reasons to look at the expansion of this role.
Other questions, Mr. Bodenhead?
So I know that teachers and administrators are responsible to themselves for making sure that they are up to date on all of their certifications and professional credits and all that sort of thing. But that all does factor into their employee records, does it not?
It does.
It's listed in here, though,
Yeah.
to maintain it.
To
Right.
maintain it. And is there a reason why the evaluation system wouldn't come under this person?
And I believe.
Oh, I missed
we put
that.
in there, but you're
thought-
absolutely right.
Number 11.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So-
I
so the way
apologize,
I would-
'cause I missed that.
The way I would break that down is they would maintain the records and would send out the notices to evaluators and so on, and maintain the currency of the flow chart that is on the inside of your eyelids, as you mentioned a little bit ago. But yet it would be the purview of the folks at central office, mostly the curriculum office, to conduct trainings, professional development for new staff members who are new to evaluation, and so on. So it's a hand-in-hand thing.
Agreed,
But
agreed.
currently, that role hasn't expanded into that arena.
Right. Because I think that would be key. And I think that in order to, I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, 100%, that I think the person in that role has to have a firm grasp on this skills needed for HR. But similarly, I think they need to get it, what schools do. Like, I would not want to see necessarily a, HR professional from the business world. You
So,
have to find that
and
mix
currently,
because it's different culture.
Currently, Dr. Kerbel and Mrs. Murphy take care of the mentoring program and the new staff orientation. Those are the kinds of things that if someone has a school background, they would understand more readily and could help us with. Again, they would be responsible for the training sessions and the meetings, but the pairings and the need for mentors would all be handled through that office. And currently, it is the curriculum, the teaching and learning office that does it.
Which I think is appropriate for
Right.
you guys to do
Right.
the training and the,
Yes.
and the actual,
Yes.
Work around how do you do
Right.
the,
Scheduling of it to fall back.
That's
But
exactly.
the scheduling and keeping
Keeping the
keeper
records.
of the records, that's where I think sometimes things fall through the cracks.
But one of the things you brought up, we hire a good HR director from TJX. When they got in here and started talking about civil service and grievances and unions, and they would get very frustrated very quickly if they've,
Right, they wouldn't want
never
to-
dealt with any of it.
There are plenty of, you take somebody from Sears who deals with unions, they may have that expertise. So, yeah, I mean, unions are probably the biggest struggle to deal with in a HR environment versus regular business.
One other thing, I would caution us, and I will be sure that we proceed cautiously with this hire. We shouldn't just make the hire to make the hire.
Right.
We do have a Plan B, and, we can pull the trigger on Plan B if we have to. But it is essential, to echo you, to get the absolute right person.
You gonna do
and I
that too, Mike?
Don't want to rush it.
How did you know?
He wears lots of hats, including a crab hat.
Tennessee.
Can I make a suggestion on number 11? Could you add some language, not that, again, to his point, to hold this up at all, but could it actually read something where it speaks to work in collaboration with the executive administration team? So that way, it really does speak to that HR as well as them working with the,
Isn't that
executive
number one?
administration. Well, I guess relative to evaluations, and I think
Oh.
that that's something which kind of has come out before. It's like, and please don't take this the wrong way, but I don't want finger pointing. I want it understood that as a group, there is a responsibility of making
Absolutely.
sure that the evaluations are done in a timely
Absolutely.
fashion. And I feel like if it's articulated really clearly there, it's not, it's not left up to interpretation.
Have you suggestions for that language?
Oversight and supervision and evaluation program for our Marlborough Public School employees.
In coordination with?
In collaboration with
Collaboration with.
executive administrative team.
Anything else?
And my only other thing, Maureen, is I would really appreciate if there was a reference back to the district improvement plan or core values, core goals, however you would like to articulate it, but that was put together with a group to make sure that we were on a forward trajectory about improvement of that area. And right now, it's really not articulating that there is a guidance, and, sorry, I think it should be in there somewhere.
I'll take care of it.
It doesn't have to be some over
Yep,
worded, but thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else? Entertain a motion to approve as amended.
Motion to approve as amended.
Motion made and seconded to approve as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
School committee workshop.
So this is just a reminder that, I know it's wonderful beach reading, the Essential School Board book, right, Mrs. Ryan, is...
It's a good book.
It's essential.
It's essential. The workshop is
We read
going...
that one 4 years ago. We don't have to read it again.
Yes, we did. You're right, we did.
Here 4 years ago.
But we, well,
Did you even get a copy?
if anyone needs a copy...
Because I know we gave Denise one.
If you need a copy, I can get a copy to you overnight through Amazon Prime. I want to thank the mayor for meeting. It was a really productive meeting, I thought, with Tony Bent, who will be the facilitator. He is my mentor and just a wonderful man, and I appreciate the time he took to come out here and meet with the mayor to sort of get an idea of goals and set the parameters for the meeting. And I think there's a comfort level all around. We've been in touch twice since that meeting, and he's really eager to do it. I'm meeting with him while I'm at the Cape at the superintendent conference to plan it out a little bit more, and I'm leaving the facilitation to him. He has recently facilitated such a session with Shelley Berman and his crew in Andover, and he's done this in many, many other districts. He's been a superintendent himself for 15 years in Shrewsbury, also in Groton Dunstable, in Leominster, which is a city, and we did talk about the correlation to the city, Marlborough and Leominster, and how it is different than a town, and Masconomet. So he's also a past president of the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents. I have a great deal of admiration for him, and of all the people in the world I could have chosen as my mentor, I chose him. So he comes with my high recommendation, and I don't think he will disappoint. So I thank you for taking the time to do this. The one piece that I would add, and this is certainly not mandatory at all, but completely voluntary piece, if there is a section in the book, we're going to do kind of a modified protocol. We're used to doing these protocols where it's called save the last word for me, but we'll modify it. If there is a paragraph or a sentence or something in the book that jumps out at you that resonates with you, either as something that you think is done particularly well or that is an area of opportunity, we'll have a chance to go around and read that passage to the group, and then you have a few minutes to explain why it resonated with you. And again, I don't suggest a deep read of this book. I'm myself admittedly only on chapter 3, but I'll take it with me to the Cape. I've dog-eared a few pages and a few areas that, if given the chance, I would love to as well jump in with a quote here or there. So I invite you to do that, but it is certainly not mandatory. Also, Mr. Bergeron, since he sits at the table, has agreed to be with us as part of this workshop. And I do have one quick question for you. Would you prefer this room or the superintendent conference room?
Conference room is,
Conference room is fine, okay. And
how many more people you bringing?
just one.
All right.
It's, including Earl, 7, 8, 9, 10, Mr. Bent. So
And I do have the Cliff Notes version of that.
I would love to see them.
And
I
it's
mean,
great,
thank
it's
you.
only 3 pages because the book's so small, so.
It's not the most riveting read, and I suggest we read it as a
SparkNotes.
backdrop.
SparkNotes.
I
I've read
promise
it.
not to tell Mrs. Walzer that you said that.
Well, the point and the goal of the workshop is not a book study. It's only a backdrop to prompt.
I still have all my
the
Post-its
questions.
all over it for
Good.
my
Well,
first
pick
read.
one that you would like to share with us and why. Are there any questions about the workshop? Thank you. I appreciate. Totally up to you. I'm not necessarily about the snacks, but
I'm sure they'll have snacks. We'll have the best snacks.
don't doubt that.
Policy 6.32, coaches. Ms. Hennessy.
Actually, I think this was put on by Ms. Grulick. The point of bringing it on is this policy was pulled together. I think we did an update, and is it on there? Sorry. We did it recently. I'm trying to get to the exact date. 2916. So there are a number of different parts of this policy that we needed to update. And I believe that there was a portion of this policy that was being asked for us to look at relative to, and if I can find it. Sorry, does anyone have that right?
2F.
Thank you. I'm looking quick. Okay. So under A, position of head coaches, under qualifications, section number 2, F, not current building administrator or the athletic director within our district. I think you'll remember the discussions that we had around this when we did approve it earlier this year, was concerns of making sure that whomever was in the role of coaching a team, that it was not necessarily having any kind of an effect in regards to the other role that a person may have within the district. As many of you, I'm sure, are aware, there are in many districts plenty of teachers, paraprofessionals and such that may in fact have coaching positions. And it was something that had come to our attention and concern, that we wanted to make sure, specifically when this had been raised a while ago, it was relative to the athletic director. Because, and not necessarily the specific person, let me just backtrack there. It is really relative to the position, because the nuances of the position is normally so much that it's a very intense, large position with a lot of needs that are not necessarily between regular work hours, if you will. And so that it also included building administrators, because as a building administrator, as we all know, it's a rather large role and does not necessarily follow within certain set specific hours, and could have a lot of needs that may not necessarily be, 7 in the morning to, 3 in the afternoon. And that's really where this had come up, so.
If I could add just a little bit more background, I think you did a great synopsis of it. We have a person who is currently transitioning from being a varsity coach to an administrative position, an assistant principal at the high school. Principal Caleri, we've had many discussions about this, and Principal Cleary is not able to be with us this evening. He's on vacation. But I asked him to do a short synopsis of his point of view, and I provided that to you. I might add one other point before you begin your discussion, and that is, omitted from his synopsis is the fact that this year we have a one-time extenuating circumstance in that the current assistant principal will not be retiring until November. So we have an overlap of those two positions, which may or may not be part of your consideration, but I wanted to say that. It isn't in his letter. And also, one other point is that if you were to grant this waiver, I would absolutely insist that it be in writing, that this would be the final, the final year of such. So just wanted to add those pieces.
I would almost prefer to change the policy to include a line that says without the direct approval of the waiving, without a vote of the school committee to waive the exemption or something. So
I think we need to talk about first whether we're going to grant a waiver.
No, according to the policy, there is no.
Well, actually, that's right, there's
So
no
change,
appeal.
I'm saying.
Right, exactly,
change
there's
the
no
policy
appeal at all.
to allow for
If we
a
stick
waiver.
to the policy, it is, and it's not. Right, I mean.
Built in.
I have struggled with this through negotiations. And again, it is not the person or people doing the job, it's the role. And you were kind enough to provide us now with a job description for the job that's asking for.
We passed them around.
Did they
not
stop
make
it to the mayor?
Is that one that the envelope that's
No.
open that says confidential?
No, it was this stack. I said, take one and pass it down.
It's a full stack.
It was a stack.
Stack.
Yeah, he's got them all. Sorry.
I don't
Sorry.
Because
Sorry.
I'm like, I don't have that yet.
Sorry,
I asked for it.
yeah, okay, so the point being that,
Thank you.
sorry. One of, as Ms. Hennessy pointed out, administrators in all buildings don't work the school hours. And one bullet point that stuck out: attend and chaperone school events and functions such as athletic events, activities, dances, etc. You can't be in two places at the same time. To Mr. Caleri's nice message, his point of they're recruiting for coaches for the winter seasons now. Well, the person who's taking this position, and it has to be specific to the person now, was in a position, had they not changed that position, their job for the fall should have been posted in February, because they were already in violation for this fall. So I'm very torn because we have a principal who consciously was breaking a policy. I know he came to the table and discussed it with you, but the policy wasn't changed. It was, I know he'd been here and had conversations, but there was no policy change. So if that person had stayed in their role, we wouldn't be having this conversation because they shouldn't have been coaching this fall. Now they're taking on a bigger job. So, again, not the person, the job. And yet, yes, we're fortunate. Well, are we fortunate? We're fortunate that we have 2 people or 3 people, 3 assistant principals for 2 months, 3 months. That doesn't mean that it can waive that job. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. Tried to go back to a clean slate about when we originally had put this, had this discussion. And really what keeps on coming back around to me, really very much so, is wanting to make sure that we allow for the person that's going to be in a larger administrative role within the district to be successful, right? And successful on behalf of our students. And to me, that needs to be the first priority before we head down the path in regards to the coaching success, which obviously we're looking for everyone to be successful within their role. But for me, I would put a higher emphasis on the success of somebody in the administrative position first. Their touch point is many more students. That said, I'm not trying to diminish the role of a coach. I highly value coaches, as many of you all know. My own children are heavily involved in athletics, as I was, so I know how important a coach is. That said, I spent some time today looking around at other districts, and there are some very pivotal roles of coaching that are still absent from other districts, such as the one that will pop out to me immediately. Lexington right now has no boys varsity or junior varsity soccer coach position filled right now. It's not up on their website. They have other positions filled. I'm very intimately aware of soccer. While I value the capabilities, I would have to prioritize the administrator's role. And I have no problem if that administrator moving into their new role wants to be helpful on the transition and aid somebody when possible. But I think it is in better stead for our students and for our district overall if we move forward. And I think to Mrs. Matthews' point, that role should have been posted a long time ago. And it should have already been on its way to being filled or already filled. It is not, but I think we still have an opportunity to go ahead and fill it with somebody capably. And if our new administrator has time to help, doesn't mean go out and coach, but has time to help, and it will not negatively affect his role, more power to on trying to help the transition, just like we would set out a transition plan of the interim superintendent with the superintendent. But for me, I don't think it is doing anything to the service of our students overall by changing it now when this was very clearly stated a while ago and the expectations were laid out there. So that's my feeling.
Ms. Bodenhinger.
I'm very torn. We talked about this a lot in policy, and if Linda Perez wasn't going to be there, this would be a complete and utter non-issue. The only reason that I even would consider this because I agree 100%. This should have been posted. I'm torn about it.
But on the flip side, if he was leaving the district, or, well,
It would be a non-issue, obviously.
it would be a non-issue, and if somebody else was coming in, you know, and also to Mr. Cleary's point about the encouragement or people moving up within the system, that's, we're not saying
It's a good thing.
that's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as Ms. Hennessy pointed out, now your exposure is to many more students, your touch points are to more students. So that shouldn't be a bad thing. So.
Yeah, I have some grave concerns about an administrator being able to do his job while wearing two hats at the same time. And I think the point has been made, and the point is valid. A coach is responsible for roughly 40 boys, but the administrative position touches hundreds of kids at that school, potentially. So it's not an easy decision, but I think I have to come down on the side of how well can one do your administrative position, which is so critical to the functioning of the school and so critical to the success of hundreds of kids, while also being a coach at the same time. And I just have some grave concerns that that can't be done. You'll sort of get half of a job being done, maybe on each side. So.
Yeah.
I
and
guess-
it's for 3 months.
I'm going to throw out the first question. Is there any interest in changing the policy? I mean, because right now, we don't even have in the policy that we can do that. So is there any interest in even changing the policy to talk about the question of doing it? And it doesn't sound like there's a lot of, this is policy.
Mrs. Policy says no. I do not have, I appreciate your point. My problem in saying that is if you offer a waiver, it will come. So I think I have no problem if somebody says that they have an issue to bring forward and we discuss it, because that's what was done. It was brought to the superintendent so that she could bring it forward to us. And what we've now said is, no, this is the policy. It was put into place in February per a lot of specifics, and this situation was very well known back in February. So so while I appreciate your perspective of adding a line, I would say at any point in time, I would hope that that would be how something would work up the food chain, if you will, is if there is a certain situation that needs to happen, it should work up through so that it can be discussed as opposed to necessarily putting a waiver out there for it to be dangled in front of somebody. So that's my own opinion.
Mr. Walter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Ms. Hennessy. I think as a school committee, we need to take a position and say, these administrative positions are so important to our district and to our kids. We don't want you focused on something else. While it's important, being a coach and coaching kids, and Ms. Hennessy commented on the importance of coaches, the administrative positions are so critical. Mm-hmm. And I just fear that if we put the out in by adding waiver language or the like, the waivers will come, and we will then be in a position of having to agonize over whether or not to grant them. And if we grant them, I have, again, as I've stated, the concerns that there are some divided time here for 3 or 4 months, however long the particular season lasts. And I just think the positions are too critical. These administrative positions are too critical. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in them. And I think the students and the district are entitled to have the full effort and full attention of our administrators on these positions of administration.
Is there any further discussion? Entertain a motion to accept and place on file.
Motion to accept and place on file.
Motion made and seconded to accept and place on file. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Summer meetings.
We had a discussion at one of our earlier meetings in June, because I was unable to attend the last meeting in June, and I think Ms. Grulich was not able to attend that either. So we had some discussion that we may need to set aside some summer dates, one that's here tonight. And so I had reached out to all of you so that we could look at a number of dates to see when we could, at minimum, have a quorum. So the dates that I have, which I did send out in an email format, but just to make sure that we have it, and not everybody could be there, just to clarify, it was having at minimum 4 school committee members that could be there on that day or night, dependent, okay? It was 7/11, which is today, 7/18, 7/22 in the morning, 7/25, I believe that was going to need to be more of the morning.
Policy
8
at 11.
is at 11. Policy is 11 to 2. And then August 3rd in the day, 8:15 and 8:17. Okay, and that was relative towards the school committee, okay? Then there were some other dates that had concerns, if you will, that did not necessarily work to Ms. Grulich's schedule, which then knocks out some of those. So my hope was, out of those dates, Ms. Grulich, if you could then provide what might work for you, so we could potentially put them as tentative dates for meetings, set up the timeframes, and then if, in fact, we needed to go ahead and move forward due to whatever needs you may have, we would go ahead and post appropriately within the appropriate timeframe. Otherwise, we would not necessarily post. And that way, we would have something in our calendars and our availability, and it would be for Mrs. Grulich to say whether it was something where she needed us on those dates. And, there you go.
I would assume you're gonna want, doing anything in the next week or so, just that you're just kind of clearing the stack. So I would think we're talking August, no matter
Right.
what we do, if in fact we do it, so.
I'm fine with any of these dates, with the exception of August 3rd. I'll be on vacation that week. And I also, at this point, high on my agenda was the approval this evening for the HR director posting, which successfully accomplished, in addition to the workshop, again, successfully accomplished. I can't anticipate, can you, Mr. Bergeron or Mary or Mark, any reason for another meeting this summer? With the exception of potentially.
So, if I can jump back in.
Yep.
At that point, then, if we knocked out any of the other dates that we have available in July where we had a quorum, really the next available date for a quorum is 8:15 then, just to make sure we're all on the same page. You have a policy subcommittee meeting, which would only be 3 people, but 3 of us are committed for a policy subcommittee meeting on the 25th from 11 to 2. So I would say, if something were to arise soon enough that we could post appropriately, I believe we might be able to get a 4th.
Well,
What?
unfortunately, I have a job, so I can't commit an entire day.
No, I guess what I was meaning is within, if she had an emergency, we already had.
Okay.
I was
Yeah.
Within.
So, I mean, I guess I would prefer an evening meeting, just because I'm taking out pretty big chunks of work time. So that's just my 2
The
cents.
15th at night does not work.
No, it does.
It does work.
It does work. The 15th at night works
Yeah.
for
Do
me.
you just wanna book that? And if we could cancel it because nothing's on the agenda, we can cancel it.
Yeah, that's,
When we had, I mean,
Thank you.
if we all can go, that's a quorum. Okay. August 15th, right?
Yeah, there were 4 of us that could be available, so that's why I'm,
We would only, we book the meeting, we will only hold it if there's an absolute necessity to do something.
Sure. Thank you. No, that's nice to know. Thank you.
It's the 30th.
Don't forget the 30th, everything starts.
Yeah, the 30th is our next regularly scheduled meeting. You asked me,
That's perfect.
That's enough?
That's fine.
Yeah, you got it.
I don't even anticipate invoking that at this point.
Yeah, but at least we know we have it if we need it.
I love that. I love to be prepared.
We're good?
Perfect.
Seeing no other
Wait,
business?
No, I have one
I
thing.
do have one other thing.
More things?
I have one more quick announcement from Patty. She's planning on booking tomorrow for the discount for the joint conference and has asked me to convey to a certain gender, the men. The men. Okay.
Nice, having a baby,
Oh, fine.
congratulations.
Congratulations, Mark.
Congratulations.
your due date?
So, she, by the way, she is by tomorrow, so I'm not sure if someone would want to get in touch with Earl, Mr. Geary. She, by tomorrow, wants to, book this for the discount, which is a worthy cause.
I will reach out to Earl
Mr. Geary,
and see
okay.
if he has any availability of doing that.
Thank you.
Are you coming for any?
Are you coming this
No, it's come-
2 words, Brazilian steakhouse.
That's 3 words.
You're gonna come down at night to go to the Brazilian steakhouse.
Oh,
I hope
it's
so.
completely worthwhile.
Yeah, that is
He's been trying to get what we got here.
welcome. Yes?
Sorry, I do have one question, then back on this, I apologize, but I didn't pick up on it until after we had left that. On the last page, you have noted Marlborough High guidance counselor. Don't you mean Whitcomb Middle School guidance counselor? Because that is something that's posted.
It's an anticipated opening.
Okay, because I don't see on here Whitcomb Middle School guidance counselor, and there is a posting that we still have up on School Spring for a guidance
There is,
counselor.
and there's Marlborough High guidance counselor twice.
Right.
It's under Marlborough High.
Right,
And
one-
it's under Whitcomb.
There's an anticipated opening at the high school, that's why it's on there.
Right,
So-
which is.
Is there two anticipated openings?
There are 2 Marlborough High
Oh,
guidance
yes,
counselors then,
right.
but there's none on there for Whitcomb Middle School guidance counselor. And there's a posting on our School Spring for a guidance counselor at Whitcomb Middle.
Correct. I meant to.
I'll have to look at
I
that.
meant to,
So
bring
that's
that
why
up.
I was
Thank you.
confused.
We're just fishing for more people.
There's a person who's taking a leave that was approved.
Correct.
Right, I
So
just
that-
didn't see that noted in
Whitcomb
here, so I
Middle.
wasn't quite sure where that fell.
Thank you. No, thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Mike, why do some of them have a position number and some don't?
Some of the position numbers haven't been made yet because they're swaps of positions. I'll give you an example. In the Richer School, we might have to reduce one because they don't have enough enrollment to keep a 5th teacher. We might go down to 4 teachers. We're using that position to then create the interventionist. So what needs to happen is I need to finish my payroll for the summer, and then we take the position and move it over to the interventionist. Eventually, everyone will have a position number.
okay, one last issue is in regards to the evaluation for Superintendent Langlois. In order for us to meet DESI's requirement of 100% evaluations, we have, well, it shouldn't be on us that we're not doing it. We need to turn it in. So I've only received 2 from,
Send it in.
and they're all on this side of the table.
Send
Way
them
to
in.
go. Come on, Ms. Ryan.
Just the one that was on, I can send you the one I have. I mean, I printed it out, but please remind us when, Desi,
I didn't either.
I need to have a little bit of time to compile.
Compile.
Compilate.
The deadline is truly the end of July, but we like to button things down early, and Mrs. Weintraub would appreciate And in all honesty, all we really need, and it's up to you how much work you want to put into the compilation that would
It's
come.
just the
I need the four standard ratings and the overall rating, so 5 pieces of data. But how you arrive at that and how much work you put into the compilation of that to derive at that rating is up to you, but those are the only pieces. And P.S., we will not be 100% this year based on some other circumstances.
That's
But
not
I would
on
like
our
to
heads.
approach 100%.
As close.
I would approximate as much as we can to 100% is the goal. And while I'm on that topic, I am also going to make some goals because I know it was not in my contract that I should, but if we could just do a few so that there is a rating at the end of this year so that we could approximate again that 100%.
And you're very goal-oriented, so I think it would be helpful for you to
Try.
have goals to work towards. So, agreed. So, so when did you say Mrs. Weintraub would like it by?
Well, she's looking to submit it. We can make an exception for you. We can make an exception.
So.
We look at next Friday.
Yeah, I was going to
the,
say, can people commit, you, I know, are probably almost done, because you said you were going to send it to me, and then I never got it. So, today is the 11th. I mean, can you all get it to me by
July 22nd.
next, well, by next Monday?
next Monday.
In a week? Can you do it in a week? The 18th? That includes
look
you.
at it.
I'm
Look
looking
at
at you. I'm looking at you.
It's a fictitious evaluation form.
Okay, so let's say that. So if you guys can all get it to me by the 18th, I will compile it and get it to Mrs. Weintraub. Although I may
Well-
have to come in to do the teach point thing.
Mrs.
Oh, I have-
Weintraub, really, I'm
have to-
sorry if I put you down the wrong road. She takes the data, extracts it from Teach Point, and sends it to Desi. You could work with Patty,
I have teach point.
and you are
Last-
designated there. He's on your team. You've
He's
been
on my
as of
team, 'cause
last
I
year.
did it last year,
Right,
right.
and it was Mrs. Hennessy who did it the year before. But if you need a primer, I'm happy to help you on that, or is Patty.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Anything else? Ms. Hennessy?
Sorry, I did want to ask if you could follow up on checking. There had been a letter that Mr. Langlois was supposed to have sent in stating that we had reviewed the concussion policy and that we had updated it, and this was supposed to have been done a while ago, and I'd like to confirm that it actually was sent in to DESE and the Mass Department of Health. It was on a date, and I really never got a full confirmation that that has been sent out, since that was something that he had put on to us to have done. I'd love it if you could look into just confirming that that letter actually went out, clarifying that we've done that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will do.
Any other business? Seeing none.
Move to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.